Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Taylor, and as many of you know, if you've watched my videos already, I am a US American that's been living and working in Germany these past few years. One of the most transformative things in terms of my lifestyle here in Germany would be food culture, so that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today in this video. One of my very favorite things to do when I travel to a different country, or not even just country, but also region or city, is try the local cuisine and try the most revered dishes that the cuisine has to offer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. Just to give you an overview of what I'll be discussing in this video, I'm going to start out by talking about what the food culture is. So what do they eat in Germany? I'm going to talk about traditional dishes and talk a little bit about regional specialties. Then I'm going to talk about the modern cuisine and how certain things like immigration have changed the modern cuisine here in Germany. Then I'm going to move on and talk about some of the social and cultural norms surrounding food in Germany. So I'll be talking about things like how people eat in Germany. There is a difference between American and German culture. When people eat their big meals of the day, and things like alcohol culture I want to also discuss in this video. Then I'm going to talk about restaurants. So this is valid for people that are also looking to travel to Germany, not just people moving to Germany. So what is a tipping culture like? Are there any social norms that go around eating in restaurants? What are the costs like when you eat in a restaurant and things like that? And then finally, I'm going to take you into my own kitchen and show you not how to make, but how I make, as a very bad cook, two of my favorite vegetarian traditional German dishes. So I will show you that at the very end. Before I start, I just really want to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe to my channel. I hope you guys like the content that I'm creating. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below if you have anything that I missed. I miss certain things all the time, and I'm learning all the time from you guys, so that's very helpful as well. So I said I want to start by talking about traditional food in Germany. I think growing up in Wisconsin, we have the stereotype in our mind of what German food is. I also grew up with a great grandmother that was from Germany, and she prepared also quite a few stereotypical German dishes, so Bratwurst and sauerkraut and things like that. Which is traditional food here. I would say that food in Germany tends to be quite meat-based. The starches that they tend to rely on most are also potatoes and fresh bread. I love the bread in Germany, you guys. You can go to the bakery, they're on every corner here, and you can always pick up fresh bread. There's also usually a bakery attached to the grocery store at most grocery stores, so you can always go do your shop and at the very end pick up a fresh loaf of bread and take that home. This is also something that's a bit stereotypical, but I find to be quite true, is that there is a very big beer culture in Germany. I read a statistic that it's a bit old, it's from 2012, that Germany has the third highest rate of consumption of beer out of all the countries in the world. There's a ton of different types of craft beers that you can try in Germany. We live in a city that's not too far away from Bremen, where Beck's Beer has its headquarters. So it's just it's a very big culture. If you also think about Oktoberfest, it's what you kind of picture when you think of Germany, and I don't think it's wrong. Then I also wanted to talk about how every region in Germany, called Bundesländer, so think kind of similar to the federal states that we have in the US, they also have regions in Germany. And every region, or also like the bigger cities, have foods that are very typical to be found in those cities, and they're kind of revered. So if you come to northern Germany, so also in the area that I live in, something that is quite popular in the fall is Grünkohl. This is green cabbage. It's usually prepared with some type of wurst, some type of sausage. And I don't typically eat it, but people go on these things called Kohlfahrts in the fall. And it's pretty much just people walking around with a wagon when it's cold outside. And they have a stereo that plays music. They're in a group of people. You can't do that anymore apparently. Maybe this fall. They have alcohol and they drink, and then they end at like a pub where you eat Grünkohl. It's a thing. I don't know. Something that's typical for Hamburg would be my favorite, Franzbrötchen. These are, I'll put a picture up, similar to, I don't even know how to describe it. It's usually with cinnamon, but they have a bunch of different flavors, and it's a pastry. It's really good. There's a ton of different regional specialties that you can find. So I would really recommend that if you're traveling to Germany and you're planning on stopping in a few different cities, that you look and do research about what the specialty is in the city that you're visiting, because it might be different than what you can find in Germany as a whole. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about modern cuisine. There have been a few points in history that have had a major influence on the food that Germans eat. And I think two of the most recent examples of that would be in the 1960s, when there was an influx of Turkish migrants that came as guest workers to work temporarily. It was supposed to be temporarily in Germany. And with that came one of the most popular dishes that is a typical food that people eat after a night out drinking with friends. But I know a lot of people that will just stop on a weekend to grab it because it's kind of fast food here in Germany, and that's Döner. And Germans can complain about the way I pronounce my O umlaut. It's a problem area for me. But it's actually, I think it was first invented in Berlin by a Turkish migrant. But it's pretty much pita bread with different types of cabbage and sauce and kebab flesh. So I think it's lamb that is put in it. But I also know that they have vegetarian options now, so I can eat it as well if I find the right store. But it's very typical for people to eat as like a fast food that they want to pick up just on a corner. And they're everywhere, these stores that sell them. And something that's a bit more recent, as many of you probably know, there was a refugee crisis. There was an influx of refugees because of a civil war in Syria. And now I've noticed that there's a lot more Syrian restaurants that are kind of popping up, and they're sharing their culture with us. Of course, just like many other developed countries, there has been food culture that has been brought into Germany and has influenced modern German cuisine. So it's not uncommon that people eat more of a Mediterranean diet with quite a bit of pasta and things like that. We have burgers over here, which originated in the US. They're somehow Germanized a little bit, I would say, but you also find American diners here that sell milkshakes, and you find every type of food here as well. But you can definitely tell that modern German food culture is something that's quite international. It's a mix of different types of food cultures that have all been brought together, and it just shows how interconnected we all are as well. All right, next I want to talk a little bit about social and cultural norms surrounding food. Something that I noticed right away when I moved to Germany, actually not when I moved to Germany, when I first visited Germany, the first time I think I was 13 years old, and I visited with my great grandma, who I said is from Germany, so we visited her family. And I noticed when we sat down to eat that people ate with both hands. They ate with a fork and a knife, and they would cut and then use the fork to pick up their food. And for anyone that's been in the United States, you'll know that this is not the common way that we eat. What we do instead is, if we need to cut something, we'll cut a piece, put our knife down, switch hands with the fork, put our other hand in our lap, and then eat. So it's a bit of a slower process, and I still do it sometimes. I haven't gotten completely used to using both of my hands while I'm eating. I still struggle a bit, and I look a bit uncoordinated when I try to use my left hand with my fork. So that's something that was very strange to me. Next, I wanted to talk about when Germans eat. So I know it's quite typical, even today, that Germans eat a bigger lunch and then eat a smaller dinner. And this is also changing now that more women are staying in their careers and both parents are working. And this smaller dinner is typically something called Abendbrot. And this is a concept where you have fresh bread, like I was talking about before. You have fresh bread and a bunch of different spreads and different cold cuts and cheeses and maybe some fruit and some fresh vegetables, and that'll be your dinner, and you kind of pick what you want. And I know even if families choose to eat a bigger dinner during the week, that some families still choose to have Abendbrot during the weekends. Then I just wanted to touch on this very briefly. I have noticed that in Germany, the portion sizes are also much smaller. I almost feel like the plates themselves are smaller here, but also when I go to a restaurant, for example, in the United States, my portion is so big that I could not possibly finish it. I usually take half of it home. Whereas I feel like in Germany, I can typically either finish or get pretty close to finishing my entire meal and will not have to bring anything home with me. So that's just something that I also noticed, that the portion sizes typically seem to be smaller. Finally, like I said, I also just wanted to briefly discuss the topic of alcohol culture. So like I've said, I've lived in 3 different countries. I moved to Germany when I was 18 years old, but I definitely got a taste of the alcohol culture when I was in the US, even though it was illegal for me to drink at that age. And I got a very interesting introduction to alcohol culture while I was living in Scotland. Those people know how to party. I have never seen so much puke in the streets in my life. And I feel like my experience in Germany was much different. And this is also where I studied, so I got to experience also university alcohol culture, as well as like now what the alcohol culture is like as someone that works full time. And I personally don't drink alcohol anymore. I did drink when I was a bit younger. And I truly have the feeling that Germany, even though they have a younger age limit at which people can start drinking, 16 for low alcohol percentage beverages such as beer and wine, 18 for hard liquor and liqueurs. I feel like Germany still is much more relaxed, and I'm not sure exactly why this is, but you have in certain cities, the first that comes to mind for me is Hamburg. You have Kiez, which is just well known for having a ton of drunk people. You've got your strip clubs, you've got your casinos, you've got your bars, and of course you've got a lot of drunk people there. But overall, I feel like people don't drink as much, or they don't get to the point where they're so inebriated that they are literally not able to get home. I saw so many people in Edinburgh just sitting on the streets puking, and it's disgusting. Like, you don't want to walk around on a Saturday evening because there's like so much vomit in the streets. I'm going to be completely honest, but I do feel like Germans, although they do get drunk, they party, all of that, it's not as intense as other alcohol cultures I've seen in Scotland and in the US. So that was just a little bit about the social and cultural norms surrounding food. Now I want to move on to restaurants. There aren't that many differences, I would say, between restaurants in the US and restaurants in Germany, but there are a few things that can leave you feel a little bit stupid if you don't know them before you come here. I think one of the biggest things would probably be tipping. In Germany, you do typically leave a tip, but it's not the 20% that you would leave in the United States. So what I typically do, and this is what I've learned from other Germans that I've been around, is when you have a bill, say you have a bill of $17.30, I would round it up to 19 euros. So I would give a little bit over €1 of a tip. This is a big difference in terms of how they pay their workers. In the United States, it's very common that waiters and waitresses are only getting a few dollars an hour as a base income, and then they would supplement that income by getting tips. So it's very common to go to a restaurant and give a 15 to 20% tip as a person eating at that restaurant. Whereas in Germany, the people that are working at restaurants are typically paid a fair wage based on minimum wage standards. So everything that they get as tips is just on top of that, but they're still making a living wage. So I think that's one of the main reasons why tipping is different. But I do think that is in direct correlation with customer service. So in the United States, it's something that I love most about the United States actually, is that the customer service is so much better. Even if it's fake, I don't care what people think about Americans being shallow or fake or whatever. It's just nice that people want to please you when you're paying for a service, that people are super friendly and they share their name with you and ask you questions and interact with the children. And I don't know what it is. And I like to think that it comes from like a genuine place most of the time. I understand that people maybe bump it up when they're trying to get tips, but it's also in other places. It's not just restaurant where people are getting tips. It's also when I go to a store and people are asking if I need any help, and they're not getting any tips and they're typically not making any commission. And this is something that's quite different to German customer service. Not to say that they're mean, I just think they're more to the point. They've got places to be and things to do. In restaurants, you would typically have to kind of wave someone down, a waitress or a waiter, to get your check, or if you want, I don't know, ketchup. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. One other small thing that I just wanted to touch upon is the outdoor seating. This is something I love so much about German restaurants. It happens quite often when you go to a restaurant, especially from spring to fall when the weather is still nice, that you can have outdoor seating. And this is something that you don't see super often in the US, especially in Wisconsin. Sometimes if it's a bit chilly out, they'll give you blankets to put over your lap and you just get fresh air. And in a lot of European towns and cities, you'll have an area in the city center where there's no cars allowed. It's just pedestrians, so it's very quiet and relaxing, and I love it. Finally, one of the biggest differences is water. In the United States, you can get water for free in, I think, every establishment, whether that's a bar, a cafe, or a restaurant. And in Germany, that's not really a thing. I think that the only place you can really get free water is maybe a cafe. Even in a bar, they would probably make you buy a bottle of water, and it's the same in restaurants. So if you order water, and by the way, they usually have 2 different types of water they'll offer you, so you have to be aware of that. They have still water or sparkling water, because a lot of Germans love sparkling water, myself included, even though I'm not a German yet. But it costs money, and drinks are expensive, you guys. It's like for a 0.2 liter glass of water, I accidentally said milliliter in one of my old videos, and a lot of you guys pointed it out. 0.2 liter or 0.25 liter, which is just like a small glass, that can be like easily €3.50 for water or soda. So keep that in mind. So those are pretty much all of the points that I wanted to cover in this video. I want you to stay with me. I'm going to take you with me to my kitchen. I actually filmed this a few days ago, so I'm wearing different clothes. And I'm going to show you 2 different meals. The first one is Milchreis. This is, also auf Deutsch, Milchreis. In English, maybe comparable to rice pudding. Okay, you guys, I'm super lazy and a bad cook. I usually make it with these pre-made packages from Dr. Edgar because I'm so lazy. I'm so lazy, you guys. I'm not a good cook. And this time I made it with all the real ingredients so that if you're not living in Germany and you don't have these packets, you can also make it at home. It's so good. And then my second dish I'm going to be making is actually a combination of dishes. I don't really like boiled potatoes. I'm not a big potato eater at all anyways, but I do like Bratkartoffeln. So I'm going to make these potatoes that I described earlier in the video, and also with white asparagus. This is something that's very popular for Germans to eat in the spring. It was expensive though. White asparagus is really expensive. I'm typically a green asparagus eater, but I just made it to show you what a typical German meal would look like. Alright guys, welcome to my kitchen. Here are the ingredients you're going to need for the Milchreis. Super simple: sugar, butter, some rice. This time I'm using arborio rice, the same rice you use for risotto, and milk. And then also some type of topping. So cinnamon and peaches is what I chose. I will put the actual link to this recipe in my description box if you want to make it as well. So we're going to start out by melting some butter in a pot, and then we're going to add the rice to the pot and just stir it until it's well coated by the butter. Then we're going to add milk to the pot as well as some sugar. After that, you're pretty much just going to stir while the milk heats up. You're going to wait until it starts boiling, and as soon as it starts boiling, you need to take the pot off the heat, the high heat, and put it onto low heat. You're going to have to do this quite fast because the milk will start to rise. So you're going to put on a timer for 30 minutes, and halfway through you're just going to check it, stir it. After the 30 minutes are up, your rice should be done cooking. You can put it onto a plate and then add your toppings. Like I said, I chose to put some cinnamon on. This is quite typical, and some peaches. You can also put cherries on. This is something that I've seen quite often. And that is Milchreis. Okay, next I'm going to move on to more of a savory dish. Here you can see the different ingredients that we're going to need for white asparagus and Bratkartoffel. These are all the ingredients, so it's also quite simple. So you're going to start by melting some butter and adding some onions into the pan, and then you're going to add peeled and cut boiled potatoes. I'm not going to show you this step because I'm assuming you already know how to boil potatoes. I would also just add some seasoning to it: salt, pepper. We also added paprika afterwards just to add some taste. Go ahead and put your white asparagus into a boiling pot of water. We also added some salt, sugar, and butter to that water to give it a bit of extra taste. And then put a lid on that and wait about 10 minutes for the asparagus to cook. Once your asparagus is done cooking and your potatoes are finished, you can put that onto a plate and you can fry your eggs and cook your sauce. Afterwards, it's just pretty much about plating everything, and that is the whole meal. It's quite simple to make, and it's delicious. All right, you guys, I'm back. I hope that you enjoyed watching me flounder in the kitchen. Not a good cook. You guys are gonna destroy me in the comments. Be kind. Give me tips if you want to, but be kind. I just wanted to remind you that if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next Monday. Bye.